Should you abandon Xbox's best feature? What's up, y'all? It's Ray, and this is my channel, Xbox Ready, where we get on and we talk about Xbox stuff, the latest news, rumors, games, accessories, pretty much anything I want to talk about as long as it's about Xbox in some way. And in today's video, we're going to talk about how one of our favorite Xbox features may be doing more harm than good. And then I'll wrap up the video talking about some awesome Xbox games that I got to demo at Days of Play. This video is brought to you by DoorDash. One of the great things about living in the modern age is that humans no longer have to go out hunting for their food, putting their lives at risk just to feed themselves. No, my friends, we are living in an age where a company like DoorDash will magically just show up at our front door with our favorite foods, groceries, pretty much whatever we want. And just when you thought it couldn't get any better, you can elevate your DoorDash experience by signing up for DashPass. I've been using DashPass for a while now. They waive all the delivery fees, so I've saved a ton of money, and it unlocks some members-only deals at some of my favorite restaurants. And as crazy as it sounds, I have even used DoorDash to get video games and consoles delivered to my house. Look, let's be honest, sometimes you've just had a long day. You don't want to have to go through the hassle of cooking or cleaning up after you're cooking or deciding what you're gonna cook. Sometimes it's nice to just sit on the couch with your wife and not have to worry about dinner because DoorDash is gonna deliver it straight to your door. Get more from delivery for less with DashPass. $0 delivery fees and reduced service fees on eligible DoorDash orders. Sign up for DashPass today and get your first 30 days free if you're a new member. Subject to change, terms apply. Thanks again to DoorDash for sponsoring this video. In this age where consoles are a wash, they're basically the same power level, PlayStation 5 versus an Xbox Series X. In this world where Xbox is giving up their exclusives to their rivals, the one thing that has endured for Xbox through all of this is Xbox Game Pass. Other people like PlayStation may try to copy it, but Xbox's move to put their brand new games on the service the same day that they come out have catapulted Game Pass to the top in terms of value. Especially recently, there is no denying that Game Pass over the past few months has been on fire, and they're poised to keep that momentum going into the second half of 2025 with additions like Gears of War Reloaded, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3 and 4, Grounded 2, and many others. I've been subscribed to Game Pass for the past 4 years, and over that time, the amount of games that I've played, especially new ones, has paid for my subscription many times over. From the customer perspective, there is no doubt, no debate that Game Pass gives us amazing value, even with these most recent price increases. But as awesome as Game Pass is, there's been a lot of debate on whether or not it's actually good for the video game industry. There's been a lot of developers, publishers, a lot of people in the industry that have criticized Game Pass, saying that the long-term effect of people wanting to subscribe to play their games versus buying them, it's gonna be a net negative for the industry as a whole. I'm once again thinking about this years-long debate because Alex Hutchinson, who is the studio head of Raccoon Logic Studios, who just produced Revenge of the Savage Planet, which also came to Game Pass, he had some very interesting things to say about Game Pass in a recent interview that he did with Gamers Social Club. He said, "What we've seen is that content has been devalued and that people are less willing to pay for things, which in the long run will likely mean less games being made and a lot more studios going under." When asked, hey, why would you put your game on Game Pass if you have these feelings, he said, well, it's always a balance between getting the word out and actually trying to stay in business and make some money. Games are expensive to make, there's a lot of competition. Basically, his hope was that, you know, people would play it through Game Pass and they would go ahead and buy the add-ons, the DLC that they put out, or people who played it through Game Pass would recommend it to their friend and they would buy it. And apparently that is not happening. He also shed some light about the upfront money that the game got in order to be included in the Game Pass library. And he was like, yeah, years ago, the check would be pretty good. It would make a difference, but nowadays, unless you're like a super tiny studio or you're big enough that you don't care about the check, it doesn't really make a difference. Later on in the interview, he's like, yeah, I think we should kind of all collectively agree not to put new games on any subscription services, whether they're Game Pass or something else. We should wait at least a year. We should do it like movies used to do it, where they would come out in theaters, they would get all that money at the box office, and then once that kind of trickled down, then they would release DVDs. Even going so far as to say that the current structure will prove very damaging to anyone who is not owned by a publisher soon if it uptick continues, so he's placing the focus on indie devs specifically. So while Game Pass, from a customer, from a fan standpoint, it's awesome, once again, we have this person working behind the scenes, working in development, who's like, I don't really know about this. Now, I'm a big fan of Game Pass, but I have to admit that Mr. Alex Hutchinson here, nothing that he's saying is inherently wrong. And for my part, I will say this isn't the first time that I've heard this rhetoric. I got to talk to someone at an indie studio who had their game added day one to Game Pass. This was a couple of years ago now, but they did mention that, no, we want people to buy our game. We don't want them to play it through Game Pass. Because essentially, what happened was they got offered that upfront check from Microsoft, from Xbox, and they essentially used that money to finish their game. Then once it was ready for release and it was on Game Pass, they needed people to buy it still in order to make any actual money off of it, because that money that they were given had already dried up. And especially everything that he's saying about the movie and television industry, the focus being more about content instead of calling them movies or TV. I mean, that's spot on, and we know that that content that Netflix or any other streaming service is putting on, it's not always good. They just know that they have to keep pumping the service with new stuff, or else they won't drive subscribers anymore. It's a numbers game. It's a quantity over quality type thing. Even so, I think the situation with Game Pass and gaming subscription services is a little different. Streaming services in film and television emerged as such a dominant force that, yeah, it changed things forever. Game Pass, it's popular enough that people can't ignore it, but it's not so dominant that it's become the only option or the only way that people can play their games. And while this isn't the case for everyone has a different experience, we've seen that games like the Oblivion Remaster, Expedition 33, we've seen a lot of these games that are added day one to Game Pass, they still sell very well on other platforms. So while if we're just looking at Xbox, sure, Game Pass is big enough to cause those disruptions, maybe it's trained some people to expect their games or wait for the games to come to Game Pass versus buying them outright. But if we're looking at the broader picture, I still don't think that we're there yet. And if we are there, I feel like, I don't know, I feel like we shouldn't be made to feel bad for choosing to play our games through Game Pass or having that subscription active. If that's what people want to do, it's studios, developers that need to adapt. Customers should be able to dictate how and when they play their games, not the other way around. We should have that freedom of choice. I do worry a little bit that these comments will kind of be picked up by other people, especially indie devs, because Game Pass, I love playing indies through Game Pass, man. There are a lot of games that I straight up wouldn't have played if they weren't in the library. Games like Planet of Lana. I want as many people as possible to partner with Game Pass to bring their games to it. As a fan, as a customer, I know that is different from the development side, from the publisher side. Going back to my earlier question at the top of the video, should you abandon Game Pass because it's quote unquote bad for the industry? Absolutely not. If you like Game Pass, keep your subscription active. If you see something being added to Game Pass and you think it's cool, you want to try it, you just want to buy 1 month, see if you like it, totally valid too. I think Game Pass is important, more important than ever now that we're starting to see $80, $90, $100 games. If I'm being super honest, seeing those price increases on digital games even, it has me believing that we will see a price increase for Game Pass as well. But for now, I think that Xbox is gonna let it ride. They're gonna be like, yeah, you don't really feel like spending 80 to 90 bucks on a game, you could play it through Game Pass. So guess what? It was just added the other day. Why not spend 20 bucks on console or as low as 12 bucks on PC and you can try it out. And of course, right as I finish up editing this video, a story breaks about an imminent price increase coming to Game Pass. This is coming via the guys that develop Better xCloud, the browser extension that it's actually really cool. If you haven't checked it out for yourself, I highly recommend it. They discovered this new notification type that is literally just subscription price increase. That's word for word, bar for bar, what it says. Usually these notifications just pertain to all the regular stuff for people who want to have notifications enabled while they're using cloud gaming. You know, stuff like you earned an achievement or like your friend sent you a message. But this one is ultra specific. I don't know why this would be in the code in the notifications unless there was indeed a price increase coming. I mean, it's not surprising. It's not surprising. They raised the price of their consoles. They raised the price of their games to $80. I just think it's a little bit too soon for all the reasons that I was just talking about. I think people are finally starting to come around to what Xbox is trying to do. People are starting to come around to multi-platform stuff, cross-platform stuff, Game Pass. And yes, while the overall quality of Game Pass has increased, especially compared to where it was 2021 through 2023, I think they gotta continue to let it ride, especially Game Pass Ultimate. If they were like, you know what, we just did a major overhaul of the cloud gaming servers. Xbox Cloud Gaming is now the best way to stream Xbox games. Then I could understand, okay, raising the price to offset those costs. We know they're working on it, but we haven't seen anything concrete just yet. It may be too much to ask for, but I mean, they should put it off as much as they possibly can. I was just talking about in another video how 2026 has the potential to be one of the biggest years ever for Xbox if they can manage to ship a new Halo, Gears, Fable, and Forza game. Why not wait until after those games ship? They're already making a ton of money on other platforms. They're one of the top publishers on PlayStation now. They have several other revenue streams. Leave Game Pass alone. Leave it alone for now. I get that they may have to raise the price in the future, but they should not touch it, at least for now. And again, as long as Game Pass is an option, I feel like this could work. If that was the only way to play Xbox games, that would be a whole different story. If you weren't able to buy the games that are in the library, whole different story. But last time I checked, there was only about 35 million subs. I say only like that's an insignificant number, but it's insignificant compared to where Xbox Microsoft wants it to be at this point. So while I'm not advocating that we should ignore everything that Alex is saying in this interview, I don't think it's time to sound the alarm just yet. Again, what happened there? I was gonna say again, respect to him because he's not saying anything wrong. And if you're a developer, of course, you have to weigh the benefits and the risks of putting your game onto Game Pass. But at this moment of time, I don't think its impact is as devastating as people make it out to be sometimes. We're still getting great games. There are still bad games being put out, sure, but I don't think that's necessarily Game Pass's fault. I think I've said the words Game Pass, like, I don't even know. I lost track. It's like every other sentence. But I'm gonna talk about it one more time because I got to actually play a couple of games at this past weekend Summer Games Fest Days of Play that are being added day one. Those games are FBC Firebreak and Wu Chang Fallen Feathers. Let's start off with Firebreak. Obviously, this game has been released since I've recorded this, and by now you've probably seen a lot of negative leaning reviews, specifically targeted towards, oh, there's not a lot to do in this game. It feels like there's not enough content. Performance-wise, I still see a little jank too, but when I played it a couple weeks ago, it's one of those games that we were laughing, things were chaotic. It's a little strange how, you know, you put the shooter that's set in the Control universe, but you don't get any of the cool powers and abilities you get in Control. On the other end, it kind of raised the stakes a little bit. Like, we're just these normal guys fighting these freaking like interdimensional terrors. I think the bones of this game, they're pretty solid, and they've already outlined 2 big updates that they're gonna bring to the game. Maybe this game could have cooked for a little bit longer, but I feel like it's not as egregious as when other studios do it. They put it on Game Pass, they put it on PS Plus. It's priced at $40. It's still pretty fun, but yeah, this might be one of those games where I like to come back to it like 6 months down the road. I'm really happy that I got to jump into Wu Chang Fallen Feathers. I didn't have an appointment and I kept checking back like, oh, can I play? And it was always full. Everyone was trying to play this game, but I squeezed in, pause, and what I found was a really solid Souls-like experience. I hate throwing out that word because so many games are trying to claim Souls-like status. But I mean, yeah, it's true to a certain extent. Like, you pray at these shrines that you can level up at and you can get your potions back and heal your health, but it respawns all the enemies in the area. There's a parry mechanic, perfect dodge mechanic, of course. You can also cast spells too, but there's a lot more action flair in this game. You have a light attack, a heavy attack that you can charge up. You got what's called a discipline attack, and then another attack on the, I think, left trigger that is also really flashy. I got to fight one boss that I was clearly not meant to fight. It beat the hell out of me. One mini boss that was super easy, and then at the end of the level, there was this one boss and I got him down all the way down here, but I got too greedy at the end. I should have dodged. I should have gotten out of there, played a little bit more safe, but I tried pushing it and I paid the price. All right, y'all, I just have to say, this is one of those games like Stellar Blade, where the main character is a certified baddie. I tried like swapping out the different armored sets, and I was like, oh, the Overlord armor set, that looks cool. That feels more like a tanky armor set. I put it on, and it was just like, it was super revealing. It was super revealing, a lot of leg, a lot of chest. So I was like, okay, I don't want to look like a gooner in front of all these people. Maybe I should change into something more modest when I'm, you know, in public. The weapon variety in this is really cool. I think at the time I had like a great sword, a small sword, great axe, a spear, dual swords. And as I was talking to the development team, there's gonna be certain weapons that are better for certain situations. So you're expected to learn and master all of them. You could specialize in one from my understanding, but I like having a deep bag and being able to switch my weapons versus being committed to one. Firebreak's coming out like in a couple of days, June 17th. And they've already confirmed like 2 big DLCs, which is crazy. Wu Chang, that's a little bit further down the line. Over in July, it's gonna be released. Overall, July is shaping up to be a really, really strong month for Game Pass. Not only are we getting Wu Chang Fallen Feathers, but we're also getting Little Nightmares 2, Tony Hawk 3 and 4, Grounded 2. Sheesh, compare that to last July when the headliners were Dungeons of Hinterberg and Flintlock Siege of Dawn. Massive upgrade. Then of course that leads us into August, where we know Gears of War Reloaded is being added. People are kind of kind of little pissy about Gears Reloaded since the multiplayer beta weekend. I even see some people being like, man, it's the same Gears, it's the same Gears. Yeah. That's the point. That's the whole point. If you want a newer Gears experience, play Gears 5. I don't know what to tell you. Anyways, guys, that's all the Xbox stuff I have to talk about today. Thanks so much for joining me for another edition of Xbox Ready. If you made it this far into the video, consider subscribing. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.